I talk to the students all the time and talk about barriers that they establish for themselves and how you prevent yourself from doing whatever you want to do. Tear the barriers down and go conquer the world because it's there for you.
Sheriff Donny Youngblood started with the Sheriff's Department as a Correctional Officer in 1972, and he became Sheriff in 2006. He's on his 4th term as Sheriff and preparing to run for a 5th term. Before the Sheriff's Department, he was in the military and served in Vietnam. He, for fun, is an avid hiker. He tries to get between 80 and 100 miles a month. He also loves golfing, and he has his pilot's license. And some of his favorite mentors or examples have been World War II heroes and generals. In today's episode, we touch on a ton of topics with Sheriff Youngblood, including the adversities that law enforcement is going through right now in this climate of our country. We also talk about COVID and the effects that COVID has had on the department. But then we also talk about immigration and dig a little bit deeper into Sheriff Youngblood's own personal life. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the Our 2 Cents podcast, the show where your local professionals sit down with an array of guests to hear their story and impart some wisdom for both business and life-improving skills. This is your place to hear business and community leaders discuss relevant topics that matter to you.
Today on the show, we have Sheriff Donny Youngblood. Hi, Donny.
Hi, how are you?
Great. And I have my co-host, I have Scott Hansen here with me, and I'm Shannon Eckroth. So, hello, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate
absolutely.
it.
Let's talk about, you've been sheriff for 5 terms, or you're running for your 5th.
Terms.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. What keeps you going? Let's just start there.
You know, I run into people every day that thank me for what I'm doing. You know, the times that we live in are really unique. And I think people feel the necessity to have a sheriff they can trust. And I'm that guy right now. I probably would have left had times not changed.
Sure. I
still look forward to going to work. They inspire me. That's what gets me up every day is people talking to me and telling me they appreciate me and appreciate the work that my guys and gals do.
How rewarding.
So that's what keeps me going.
Absolutely. And how long have you been with the department?
1972.
Okay. A minute.
I came to work in 1972, right out of the military.
And you were with the Army, correct?
I was in the Army from 68 to late 71.
Gotcha. Okay.
Sheriff, what gave you this passion for law enforcement? And maybe it came right out of the military, but what started all that for you? What made you want to go that direction?
I really never had a desire to be a police officer. I graduated from West High. That was my 3rd high school. I wasn't doing all that well. One of them was called Vista on weekends, and
never heard of it.
I was well known in the neighborhood. When I graduated, my dad we had met with the principal, and he told my dad that there was a good chance I wasn't going to graduate. And my dad said, "What if he joins the military?" And the principal and my dad shook hands that if I joined the military, I would graduate from high school. And I thought, wait a minute, I'm sitting right here. And when I went in the military, did 14 months in Vietnam. I came back. I went to drill sergeant school. I was a drill sergeant for a little over a year, and I got discharged. I was a totally different person than when I went in. What got me started in law enforcement was it was paying $4 an hour, and I thought $4. It was,
wow.
Minimum wage was $1.65.
Right.
And same price as a 6-pack of beer, just for the record.
Do the math.
Every hour I worked, I added it up. But the truth is, it was a well-paying job, and I respected what they had done. I knew a lot of people that worked there, and I just went and took the test, and I came out number 3 out of about, several hundred, and I was really pleased with myself, and started out at Lerdo in 1972.
Sounds like you found a place where you excel. Maybe went from not having that great high school career and then finally falling into something that you said, I'm actually good at this, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is something I enjoy and I'm good.
It wasn't only that, but I saw the world differently. And I talk to the students all the time and talk about barriers that they establish for themselves and how you prevent yourself from doing whatever you want to do. Tear the barriers down and go conquer the world because it's there for you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't know the color of your skin. It doesn't know whether you're a male or a female. Just go grab it and do it.
I think that's a big aha moment for people hopefully everybody eventually gets that aha moment, but people reach that at different times in their life. You got it at a pretty young age. I know I did too, but I remember that being a big aha moment where I can actually control my own actions, then it can make a difference, right? And I can decide some of these things. Life isn't happening to me, that I can make life happen for me. Yeah.
Life was pretty difficult during those years, and you're always stumbling, and you finally say, I can't just do this forever. And you wake up and you do something that you feel really good about, and you get this self-satisfaction. You get a paycheck for the hours that you work, and that really inspires you. Yeah. My dad helped me buy a car. I bought a 57 Chevy. I was able to make those payments. All that fit in. At the end of the day, I can do whatever I want to do.
Yeah.
And then when I came to work in the sheriff's office, I was in heaven. It was just a great job. Worked in the jail for a couple of years, and I learned so much in the jail before I ever went to patrol that it was really, really beneficial. But I loved what I was doing. And we're what now? How many years later? And I get up every morning looking forward to go to work. How many people can say that they've done that for 40 or 50 years?
Yeah.
Every day.
Right.
Look forward to going to work.
That's success, really. Yeah. Right.
When you were growing up, what did you want to do before you went into the military, or what were your ideas as a kid?
There was I had two friends, and we three were going to work in the railroad. We all wanted to drive a train. That's what we wanted to do, and two of them could accomplish that.
Really?
Yeah. They both retired from the railroad. I wound up in the military, and so our paths kind of separated. But my main objective was to stay away from my three older sisters, because I had three older sisters.
How much older are they?
Not very much, but enough.
Enough, yeah.
They would whip my butt pretty regularly and keep me in line. So
I'm sure they're pretty proud at this point, though.
Yeah, they're all three still around, and we still
kicking your butt.
We still go do things together, and
yeah.
We can't wait for Crystal Palace to open back up, because we would go as four of us would go there. With both my sisters lost their husbands, so we still get together and go to those places. Really pretty close.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's so much going on in the news. There has been the last couple of years, especially last year with COVID. How has that affected the sheriff's department in general? And, we all see how it's taken a toll on the community, but directly, how have you had to pivot maybe operations to deal with all of it?
Yeah, we've had to let people know in the organization we're not bulletproof. We go through life doing this job. A handful of times tragedy strikes, and we had a tragedy with Deputy Campus not too long ago.
Right.
And that was really a different type of death, because it was a shooting. It was personal. Deputy Campus was doing everything he could do to get in and save a woman's life, because we had a female on 911 inside the house. Ultimately, she was killed by the husband, but she was still alive. They made a decision to go in knowing what the peril could be. And there was two other guys on the SWAT team that were point guys, just like Campos was. Yeah. And he demanded to go as a point man, because the other two had brand new babies.
Are you kidding?
True hero. I mean, that's very heroic. He is putting himself in the line of fire to save somebody, knowing the potential consequences. Wow.
And then we've had to kind of pivot with COVID to, I don't require the deputies wear masks, but I encourage them to.
Sure.
I encourage them to get the vaccine, but I'm not requiring them to get it. That's a choice that they make with their doctors. Governor Newsom's trying to change that, but I feel very strongly that's their choice. I don't even know in my organization who's been vaccinated and who has not. It's none of my business. And so we're going forward with that. We've had a death this last week of a deputy from COVID, so we're aware of the hazards that this disease, it can be deadly. But you have to look at the numbers, you have to look at your age, you have to look at your health, you have to have a conversation with your doctor and your family, and then make a decision, and I'll support whatever that is.
I almost want a commercial break because I'm emotional about Campos, but
yeah, that was I've been around a lot of years. I've had deputies die in car wrecks. Rick McHale was shot and killed in Oildale, and he was a friend of mine back in the 80s. And those are the ones that stand out, because car wreck is just as deadly, and it's just as painful to us. But a shooting is different.
Right.
It's an intentional act someone did to take your partner's lives. And
it was a goal to kill somebody.
Yeah. And so I'm not to minimize the others, because they're tragedies as well. We lost James Throne was the first deputy that was, as a sheriff, that was killed in line of duty, and he was also the first deputy I gave an award to. And shortly after I gave him his award, he was killed.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
He and another deputy ran together out in Lamont, and he died. So, Joe Hudnall died in the canyon.
Right.
We just had, I think there's 17 in my career that have died in the line of duty. That's a lot of people.
That's a big number.
It's a lot of good people, and uniquely different. We've had airplane crashes. We've had people divers that have died while trying to do whatever they do. There's just a lot of different ways to die in law enforcement. There really is.
Change the topic a little bit. Your pilot's license. We had talked about it a little bit before the show, but can you talk about, I just think it's fascinating to me that you had gone through your licensing, but then you kept going to get so many additional parts of the license. I'm just curious, do you fly often now?
I don't now. My eyesight's not as good as it should be. The pilots in the organization, they want to log time. I couldn't care less. But back in the 70s, my dad, he was a pilot, and he challenged me and offered to pay for my pilot's license, and I ultimately took him up on that. And then once I got my private, I'm an overachiever. I wanted to get my instrument rating. Then I wanted to get my commercial. And then I wanted to get my multi-engine. And I wasn't leaving the sheriff's office. And
right. It was a hobby.
Yeah, I used to do some corporate flying for Calcott on the side, and it served me well.
Yeah, rewarding.
Shannon, you've recently dove into this area.
That wasn't my point, but yeah.
Well, I know it, but so we got two pilots here. I'm also a pilot, and then we got an aspiring pilot. So that's exciting. I mean, I just think I know we talked offline for a second about it, but it's just it's a great achievement. It's a great education.
It is,
and you end up learning a lot of things that you probably would have never. And discipline, 100%.
We're hiring deputies right now because we're going to run out of pilots. My pilots are going to retire, and so we train all of our own pilots right from the beginning. But now we're looking for people that have at least a private, so they kind of have the groundwork, and then we'll bring them in and we'll teach them to fly the thing that beats itself to go through the air. It's called a helicopter.
Thing without the wings.
Yeah.
I haven't got my head wrapped around those. Have you spent much time in those?
Oh yeah, I've got a lot of time.
Yeah, I bet
they're
you do.
a lot of fun to fly. They really are. And I've had still have some great pilots that they can do some amazing things with those helicopters.
You mentioned hiring. What does hiring look like right now for the department?
If you're looking for a job, sign up. We'll hire you tomorrow.
Please.
We're in a situation we can't get enough people. Last year and a half, we've been given a green light by the Board of Supervisors to hire as many deputies as you can, fill as many positions as you want. And last year we were, at the end of the year, we were minus 33.
Holy smokes.
So we hired 17, lost 50. They retire. We've had a retention problem because of pay.
Right.
Kern County has been one of the lower paying counties. The county's working on that. We're actively going to come up with a plan to fix that. I can't articulate what it's going to look like because it's not my role to negotiate for pay raises. My role is to fill vacancies and provide public safety. They do come together. And so the union is actively negotiating. I've been talking to each board member. I think they're on board. I think they realize that we're at a point where we're running out of people.
Between the different opportunities that the department might have, from detention deputy to administrative and then actual patrol deputy, would you say that there's equally open positions in all the different departments, including the admin?
There are. We can't get enough detention deputies. We can't get enough regular deputies. We're having a graduation Friday. And I think we have 4 detention deputies that have transitioned to regular deputies who just
awesome.
Graduate, Friday. But that leaves a hole,
another hole,
4 over in the other side. We have done away with some professional staff. Some positions that we could. But you get to a point where if you don't have professional staff to do the job, then you have a sworn deputy that does the job, and that doesn't make sense. So it's a balance that you have to have. But we have open positions. We're hiring as fast as we can in just about every category in the organization.
That's a good distinction to make, and that's something that probably the general public doesn't quite understand, is that to get on with the Sheriff's Department does not necessarily mean that you're going to become a officer. It could be support staff.
You can take whatever test you want to do, and a lot of people transition after they get there. They not sure what they want to do.
Yeah. Just
as important for people that go out and process crime scenes for us, people that serve civil papers. Constitutionally, the sheriff's required to have jails and civil and courts, bailiffs in the courts. The Constitution does not require that I have a patrol staff. You guess what comes first because you're going to fulfill your constitutional duty. And but it's difficult sometimes to balance that.
Sheriff, how much over the last couple of years, it sure seems to me from the outside looking into law enforcement, is that the image has changed a lot. And it seems to me that I know growing up, 1970s, 80s, 90s, to compared to today, there was a real honor and prestige and pride that you carry when you're wearing a badge, when you're in uniform. And somehow over the last few years especially, it sure seems like that has changed. And I just asked that to kind of understand, is that also contributing to the shortage, the hiring challenges that you guys have? Because it seems like, pay aside, pay, benefits, things like that, I know that there are challenges there always, every year, right? Trying to balance that with budget. But it also seems that the pride and the exclusivity that you kind of came into once you reached the level of having a badge and the authority and so forth, it seems like that made up for some of that. And so I think a lot of people came in and were attracted to it because of the benefits of being somebody and being somebody important. Do you find that is a challenge that you guys are facing?
It is. First of all, whatever you do, you're going to be criticized for, even if you're doing the right thing. Yeah. And if you can't accept that, if you don't have thick enough skin, that'll really eat you. We have people leave because they just can't deal with that. But we do know that 90% of our public supports us. We do know that there's a very small percentage out there that no matter what law enforcement does, they're not going to like us, and we accept that. We know the media carries their mantra. Yeah. The media loves a good story at the expense of whatever it is. And it's not knocking the media. I say it to them all the time. They can help change this narrative in this country. They have to be active and they have to be honest, because the public wants an honest policeman and they want an honest person giving them the news. And we need to get back to that.
Equally important.
Equally important. Yeah. We're in this country. We're facing anarchy. I mean, let's be honest. We've changed so much in the last 2 or 3 years that it's incredible. I never thought we would be here, but we are. And it's our job, all of us, to be active and change this to not pro cop or pro anything for that matter, but it's our country, all of us, and it's my job to be the sheriff for whoever's in the county. It doesn't matter if it's in the county illegally or not. But when the biggest problem we have in this country is the people in this country do not trust their government. Period. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that there's a good reason for that. I mean, sure. We see it every day, and sometimes I get really disgusted because, of course I'm not always objective because I'm a certain party and I lean a certain way, but I try and be as objective as I can. But when I see things, I mean, when Donald Trump was the president, I was critical of him a lot of times because, quite frankly, he lost the election on his own. He could have won that standing on his head, and he chose not to because he couldn't talk to people the way that they should be talked to. But then now we're seeing things like I think it was yesterday, Jen Psaki, the press secretary, said that the question asked of her was, why do people that fly into this country legally have to be vaccinated, but people that are walking across the southern border illegally do not have to be vaccinated? And her answer was, well, they're not going to be here that long. There's a difference.
I'm sorry.
Well, we're not that stupid. Yeah. Well, I hope we're not that stupid.
Right.
But when you do things like that, people then say, how can I trust my government? They're all lying to me. And some of them are. Yeah. From both sides. And if you want the crazies, go to the far left, far right. You can find them.
Oh, yeah.
Has there ever been another stage in your career that you've seen the emotions towards law enforcement be this sharp or this aggressive?
I think the closest would be Rodney King. I took 25. I was the patrol commander. I took 25 deputies to L.A. for the riots, and immediately following the Rodney King incident, and you had this, the Reginald Denny thing where he was hit with a brick and changed his life forever. You had all those things, the riots, and this is very similar to what we just went through, but it was different then because law enforcement could do what they had to do.
Right.
And what we saw recently with Black Lives Matter and it
was abusive.
Antifa,
right.
Anything law enforcement did was wrong.
Right.
And all they were trying to do was protect the public. I watched the Bakersfield Police Department every night come in with spit all over their back, and I knew what they had been through in their shift, and that's just hard to do every day.
Yeah, that's what gets me, is that behind that uniform is a person, just like you.
With a wife and
kids and a life, and they're trying to provide for their family, and they're doing it through law enforcement. And by the way, they're really not the bad guy, okay? You know, that maybe it has something to do.
You sound like me.
No, I know. And
when did we become the bad guy?
I'm making your case a little bit, but I do believe that, because I think that's actually what's wrong. I think a minute ago you said 90% of the public does support you, and then there's these smaller factions that are very loud. And you know, it is just a shame that they are as loud as they are, because really they are a very small group that is really good at making a lot of noise. And I do think that what the noise that they're making overall, in the end, hurts the authority and the ability for law enforcement to do their job. Yeah,
you know, we're accused of not, you know, taking care of bad cops. We don't do the right thing with them. And I can tell you, nothing can be further than the truth.
I can think of multiple examples that you've done good.
I think I've fired probably 50 or 60 cops over the last 15 years for misconduct. But I can't talk about it because the Peace Officer Bill of Rights doesn't allow me to talk about that.
Yeah.
We hire from the human race. We're going to get people that aren't in it for the right reason. They surface rather quickly, and we eliminate them. Nobody wants a bad cop in the organization more than a good cop. They don't want to work with them. And so we do that. But one bad cop doing one stupid thing, it gets spread across the media as if we're painted with a broad brush, and that can be very painful for young deputies. But what I've learned is this generation that's coming to work now, they don't know what it's like to work without a mask. They don't know what it's like to work without being accused or you know, it's just like they're like ducks.
Good point. Yeah.
Water just runs off their back because that's all they know.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
And
That is.
You know, I get my feelings hurt pretty good.
Right.
You know, for them.
Yeah.
I don't get, you know, people say things about the sheriff. It doesn't bother me. I signed up for that. But these young people, you know, I'm defensive of them.
Sure.
But we do the right thing. People don't understand is you have to be able to prove an allegation before you can discipline someone. They have rights just like everybody else, as they should have. Because when you have two people saying something, they're different. You have the police officer and you have the bad guy. One guy has something more, a reason to be dishonest than the other. Sure. Doesn't mean he is, but you have to factor all that in.
Another thing I get frustrated with in seeing some of these cases, the sheriff's department or even the district attorney's office inability to talk about the case while it gets played out in the media. A lot of assumptions made, and I watch the sheriff in other communities, you know, who's up there at the press conference, just not being able to say much, but you can sure tell that on his or her mind, you know, I like to tell you a lot about this, but I just can't, you know, and so, but then the accusation is, well, the sheriff's department isn't talking or the police department isn't talking, so they must be guilty, you know, and it's just, well, hold on, no, what they're doing is due process. There is a process that these things go through, right?
And, you know, even in a criminal case, you have to be cautious because there's also going to be a civil case that's going to come behind it. And as a sheriff, you're responsible for the taxpayer dollar, which can be enormous in a lawsuit. The media makes hay out of the lawsuits that are settled. What happens in a lawsuit? County attorneys will do an evaluation. Here's a worst case scenario. Here's best case scenario. Here's what's probably going to happen. Here's what we can get out of it for. Yeah. You have to look at that, and almost all of them, there's no guilt attached to it. It's just cost of doing business. A
financial decision that you're making on behalf of your community.
Absolutely. In a great... Quick story, very first case as a sheriff, deputies did nothing wrong. They were in one hell of a fight out in the desert with a guy who was beating his mom and dad. They show up, he grabs his mom, drags her in the house, and they have a hell of a fight. And ultimately, they finally get him outside, handcuffed, and he dies from probably excited delirium. The heart stops. You're on drugs. The heart doesn't know when to quit. Make a long story short, he died. County wanted to settle it. I think it was for $80,000. And my first case, I said, we didn't do anything wrong. Mm-hmm. If we settle this one, we're just inviting more cases. Let's go to trial. So we did. And we lost $4.5 million. And the jury said, shouldn't have killed him in front of his parents. And I went, okay, I'm going to learn something here. You know, maybe I need to be a little more flexible.
Yeah, and from a feasibility standpoint, that's hard to do. When you have a real opinion about, and you know the inside facts about what actually went on or what.
Especially for the young officers who did nothing wrong.
Yeah, that's
it's
tough.
hard for them to say, well, why are you giving them money? Because I didn't get it. So I know they don't.
When you have that situation and on behalf of a deputy, a case goes, civil payout, did they lose their jobs? How does the county feel towards that?
Civil action has nothing to do with the administrative. You have three types of investigation. You have a criminal investigation, then you have an administrative investigation, then you may have a civil trial. The three are not connected to each other.
Gotcha.
The administrative, you may discipline a deputy severely, and there might not even be a lawsuit. Because we uncover probably more than half of the problems that we have. It's not somebody telling us. We discover it.
On the budgetary front, related topic is Measure N or M? Which one was county?
It was Measure N. No, Measure N was the city. I don't even remember what ours was, except that
I think it was M. I get a mix
down in
up.
flames.
Yeah, and so because of that, I know that it's also caused challenges for hiring practices because just of the size of the budget, right?
Yeah.
So now here, what are we? A couple years after that measure was put on the ballot? Are we 2 or 3 years maybe or so? So kind of what has transpired since then, and has that caused the problems that you foresaw?
Well, we went down in flames because we weren't prepared. The city had worked hard. At the last minute, we decided to jump on the bandwagon and see if it would fly, and it did not. I think you'll see it resurface again in the near future because it's necessary. If we just said this is going for law enforcement, it would have passed overwhelmingly.
Yeah.
They don't trust their government.
Yeah.
And they don't trust the politicians to spend the money where they say they're going to spend it. Look at Measure N. They've been critical of the city council ever since day one.
Can we define what these are?
Yeah, and so I don't, Sheriff, maybe we can help exactly with what the facts were, but I believe it was a sales tax.
1 cent sales tax.
1 cent sales tax increase across the county.
Correct.
To fund primarily, almost exclusively, law enforcement.
You couldn't, at that point, you couldn't say it was for law enforcement.
Okay.
Because it would require 2/3 to pass. If it's a general, it was 50%, which the city they were very successful at. But I think you'll see it again because people want proper law enforcement. They really do. We get a lot of support through the board, and the board gets it. They're working with me. I think that we're putting a plan together to fund this the way it should be funded. It's just been a struggle. We went through the downturn, the oil downturn, the real estate boom. I've been through it all, except for the first 2 years I was a sheriff, which was a lot of fun. And then it went to hell in a handbasket. And
you're going for term 5?
Yeah. So I need help. So it is what it is, and you kind of live day by day. You don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what the budget will look like next year. I know that this year we did really well with the county. They've given us a green light to hire as much as we can hire, but we're not being able to attract quality candidates. A lot of them fail the backgrounds, drug use and things like that.
It's a tough job to get.
It is.
Yeah. So we're locally, you have the sheriff's department, or the sheriff is a elected position, but that isn't true in all communities. Some counties and areas are structured differently. Or am I right about that?
In other parts of the country.
Okay, not in California.
In California, they would love to appoint sheriffs because then they can muzzle us.
Well, and that's what I wanted to ask you is now that you've seen so many different sides of this, what would your recommendation be? Should a sheriff be elected official, or should they be appointed?
Absolutely, a sheriff should be elected because the sheriff is a voice for the public.
Yeah.
The sheriff works directly for the public. I don't have to answer to anybody. I don't have to explain my actions. A chief of police has to go through a city manager, city council, and I'm not knocking chiefs of police, but they have to sometimes say what the script is.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't last 5 minutes as a chief of police because I speak from the heart. And sometimes, I say things. I go, "Wow, did that really come out?" Because it doesn't come out the way you want it to. But sheriffs are the voice of America. Every person in this country votes for their sheriff, and it doesn't matter whether you live in the city or whether you live in the county. You elect your sheriff, and there is a checks and balance. If you don't like your sheriff, vote him out or her.
Yeah,
because I think we have three female sheriffs in California.
Which is awesome.
And they're all good.
Yeah.
Margaret Mims up in Fresno County is fantastic. And then we had Sandra Hutchins, who passed away from Orange County, and she was just phenomenal as well.
With Bakersfield, it was on social media, it was in the news, getting this label that we're one of the most dangerous communities. There's Bakersfield, you're Kern County, but I don't see a lot of difference as far as...
Well, we were labeled as the deadliest county because people were dying in our custody. What they didn't look at is the violent crime that we have in Kern County. And we are extremely violent in the Central Valley. We don't have a monopoly for it. But there's a reason for it. When you stop holding people accountable for their actions and you kick everybody out of jail, out of prison early,
sure,
you can expect this result, and that's where we're at. If you remember Prop 47, Prop 57, Prop 47 we voted on, and we can only blame ourselves because we voted on it to decriminalize everything. But if you remember Prop 47, when you have a proposition that goes on the ballot, there's a title and summary that's written by the Attorney General of the state, wherever it's at. And the Attorney General was Kamala Harris. And the title and summary for Prop 47 for decriminalizing all crimes was Safe Neighborhoods and Safe Schools. So when you went in to read the ballot, what did you read? Safe Neighborhoods and Safe Schools. Who doesn't want that?
Right.
And that's how they got it through. That's how they got us to vote for it. And, it's disgusting to look back on that, but that's exactly how it happened. And now to change it, it has to go back on the ballot, and it's very difficult to do.
For listeners who don't know, Sheriff, just give us a little bit of a look into Prop 47 and what's changed because of that over the years.
Well, look at your homeless population. Mm-hmm. Are most of them, or a large percentage of them, drug addicts? Of course they are. What did we do with Prop 47? We made Prop 47 possession of heroin, possession of methamphetamine misdemeanors, not felonies. So when you go to jail, you're given a ticket and you're kicked back out the door, and we expect you to change your behavior. It's not going to happen. And so until we can get a grasp and a hold of that and make a change there, we can expect the same. When realignment was shoved down our throats in 2011, there was 179,000 prisoners in state prison. Today there's 94,000.
Wow.
Look at our homeless population. Look at the population in the prisons. This is not rocket science. There's a direct nexus to this. Now, some of those people deserve a chance. I'm all for second chances. Jerry Brown and I had this conversation. He said, I believe in a second chance. And I said, Governor, I do too. I just don't believe in a 30-second chance. Mm-hmm. At some point, we have to cut our losses instead of continue to create victims, and that's what we do.
Well, this is a great segue into our homeless situation that we have. It is rampant. I don't think you can be sitting. You can't be sitting in California and talking to the sheriff of a county and not bring up, what's going on in our county, just like it is in the whole state. So where did we go from? Because in my mind, homeless is, single mom, 3 kids, living out of the car, trying to go from job to job, trying to feed her family, right. And maybe it's not just single mom, maybe it's whole family. But my point is, there's kind of a definition in my mind through the years that homeless is, temporarily without home and or food and really trying to get that next opportunity in life. And somehow we went from that to sort of wrapping everyone into this homeless category. And you mentioned a minute ago, and it's so true, the vast majority of people who are, quote, homeless are also have drug abuse problems, maybe mental health problems is a big thing. And so at what point do we get a little bit more honest about where these people fall into in different categories, not to categorize them, but to treat them with the actual treatment that they need? What are your thoughts on that?
The left-leaning population will have told me over and over, we disagree with you because we don't think jail is a place for these people that have these mental health issues. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't agree with you more. Tell me how we treat them, because we can't forcibly treat them. Under realignment, we had programs at Lerdo. They were lining up for them. We had the RSAT program, residential substance abuse program, anger management, child custody machines where they could learn to pay their child support and how they could do it to keep them out of jail. Get a driver's license before they were released from jail. Now we don't keep them. The ones we keep are serious felons. And I get every day, you got to let the people out of prison that are in there for possession of marijuana. And folks, there's absolutely 0 people in the state of California in state prison for possession of marijuana. No one, not one, 0.
That's rhetoric.
How many?
It is.
Yeah.
It sells good to the public because, I agree. I might smoke a little marijuana, so I don't think that they should be in cut. Well, they're not.
They're not. Yeah.
But this the mental health and the drug aspect, they're connected in a lot of these people. So what we're working, the county's working on a plan. We have the low barrier shelter where there's beds, there's bathrooms, there's showers. They can go there, they can get treatment, they can get help, and we stop people on the streets and we offer them a ride to the low barrier shelter. They won't go. There's a faction of people that like the lifestyle that they're living, and they want you to leave them alone. The low barrier shelter is not full of people, and
there's openings.
Look at our homeless population.
Yeah.
So that there's a message there. We just have to listen to it.
Yeah, and then I get frustrated too. I haven't seen this in Kern County, but I have read in other communities where the shelter that's been created is then substandard, and there's a lot of criticism about the shelter. And here again, these are temporary places. These really aren't permanent homes or even designed to be that way. They're this is interim. This is while you're getting treated. This is while you're getting that next opportunity that you want to take in your life. And
at least you can make the decision with a clear mind whenever you make it.
Yeah.
When you're getting a ticket for being under the influence of meth or heroin, you're not going to make it clear. You're not going to show up. We have people they have 30 promises to appear, and that they're not coming.
Yeah.
And we know they're not coming.
Yeah. What do you think that it ultimately looks like if we were to be able to solve this issue, this homeless issue?
Well, we've always had homeless people. We know that, but we've always had ways to help them. But this started, if you recall, I was one of the first critics of people when you pull up to a stoplight and somebody's there waiting for you to give them money, don't give them money. Right. Donate it to the shelter. Donate it to someplace. Let these people go get help if that's what they want. A lot of them are living better than you are, and you're giving them money. So what we have to do is hold people criminally accountable for their actions. When we arrest somebody on the streets that has 3 shopping carts full of stuff, we have to inventory every piece of that. We have to take it, book it into property. It's an all-day event. And when they're released the next morning, guess what? We have to go back, go through the inventory, and release it all back to them. And that a young deputy or a young police officer, it's not long before he goes, I'm not making that arrest. Yeah. Because your shift's done.
Yeah.
And so, every piece of legislation coming out of Sacramento today is about the suspect, how we can help the suspect. What about the victims? Yeah. We're all victims of quality of life crimes in our communities and our neighborhoods. What about us? And we need legislators that will enact legislation that helps us do what we have to do. Treating these people with what has to be done isn't always going to be pain-free. It's difficult to do. But right now at Lerdo, I have 180 people that are in there with a mental health issue or waiting for a state prison or a state hospital bed. There's no room for them. So they're in my jail. Now, we've learned that you can develop a relationship with those people, get them on their medication, and so it's really a pretty easy pod to work. But that's a lot of people that shouldn't be in jail. They should be in a state hospital because the mental health is deteriorated that much.
You said something that made me think. So my father, he works out of Portland, Oregon, and my son and I...
God help him.
Let me finish. My son and I went and visited him, and it's been probably 2 years since I was there. And it was shocking, the amount of homeless. Portland's always notorious for homeless and heroin problems and so forth, but it was shocking. And then to understand that they've actually reduced the criminal charges for drugs to treatment. Like, they're not even where we're at in California anymore. They're treatment. I don't know how that's going. What do you think about?
I can tell you how it's going. You can give someone treatment if they want to be treated for drug addiction. If they don't, take the money and throw it out the window because you're wasting your money.
It makes a lot of sense.
It's just that simple. And this has been this way for 50 years that I'm aware of. People that want help can get help.
Right.
We're out there to have, if we stop someone that's on the street that's homeless and they say, I need help, we're going to do everything we can to get them into a facility, get them treatment. We're going to do everything we can do. Mm-hmm. And that's what policemen do. We don't just make arrests. But we run into the same people over and over and over again that this is their lifestyle and you're interfering with it.
Right.
And those people, I'm sorry, we allow them to accumulate shopping carts. It's not theirs. They steal those. Mm-hmm. We allow that to happen, and that's their mode of transportation. So we're in the county and the city, quite frankly, we're putting a plan together to try and address this. But until we hold people accountable for their actions, we can expect more of the same. It's just simple math. You can see it. Look where we were 20 years ago. Look where we are today, and look what's happened to make that change. Mm-hmm. And it's everybody wants to help the bad guy. Let's get him out of jail. They shouldn't be in jail. They should be in treatment. Okay, let's get them treatment. Well, we can't force them to take treatment. That's true. That's why you have them in jail for the crimes that they committed.
Yeah, until they start to make that decision, hopefully for themselves and for everyone, right?
When realignment came down and we took over the programs in our jail, we were having great successes with people that we've never have come back. They went through the program, better than sitting in the cell. We had a graduation. We had class speakers. We went the whole 9 yards.
Something to be proud about when they're there.
And those inmates would tell you their biggest fear was to not let the officers down.
That's awesome.
And then, but that's gone because they're not in custody long enough.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a reflection on our whole society when we have this rampant problem going on and we're not addressing it at face value. And so, the points that you're making are things that we kind of as a society maybe are kind of hiding from or avoiding, but it seems like it's only going to get worse before it gets better unless we do start to have a more matter-of-fact approach to it.
I think it's going to require change in people that are in our government, and I think you're going to see that. I hope so, and that's not a Democrat or a Republican. It's just people that are in there doing nothing, people that are afraid to make that hard decision because there's so much money for me to make it the other way for my political career. Sure. That's where we're screwed up, and we have to, as a sheriff, and I think most sheriffs think like I do. If I lose the next election, okay. But you're going to hear from me what you're going to hear from me. The fact that you're going to vote for me isn't going to change what I have to say or right. what I feel or what I think is right.
Sure.
And that's what politicians need to be like.
Yeah.
You talked about a pod at Lerdo for mental health, and I worked at Lerdo for a little bit too much of my life, a while, and I worked a lot in HPod, which is it was at least the immigration pod. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, with having 6 units in that full pod, if I recall, they were pretty darn full with people from a variety of countries and backgrounds. What does that look like now for the department?
Well, first of all, we don't hold immigration, very few immigration holds now. That's a dirty word in our government, but that's a different topic. We have to segregate because mm-hmm. you can have Asian gangs,
right?
You can have Hispanic gangs. So we've always done that separation. Mm-hmm. But federal prisoners have always been kept from state prisoners, just like we don't house juveniles out there because that's you can't mix these people. So that's a lot less now than it was when you worked there. We had 3,000 inmates in custody back in those days. Mm-hmm. Right today, I bet you we're at 1,700.
Wow.
Yeah, we're the other 1,300. I can show you if you want to go for a quick ride.
That's insane. That really, really is wild.
It's, we went through a period, if you recall, that we didn't have beds. We were kicking everybody out early.
100%, yeah.
Max Mead is sitting empty.
Oh, wow.
Why? Lerdo Minimum is sitting empty.
The yard is empty?
Empty. Why? Nobody's there. Because we don't hold misdemeanors.
Oh my gosh!
Because we have zero bail.
Oh wow! That's scary to me.
So that's where these people are.
It explains a lot. On the last topic we were just talking about, right? It just really adds up.
And a lot of these homeless people have been through the system. People don't know, but to get to state prison, you must be an overachiever. You've been through the county system over and over and over again, and you've been to you've been to Superior Court over and over, and finally the judge says enough is enough, and off to the state prison you go.
Yeah,
those people are that's a lifestyle, and you're not going to change a lot of those people. We were getting misdemeanors, we were keeping them in custody. We're not now.
Yeah,
they're given a ticket and they're released. A lot of cases that the judge has to decide now whether zero bail applies, and it's predicated on how much money you have, what kind of job you have, or do you have the money? Can you afford bail? Mm-hmm. That just pisses me off from just on its face. Mm-hmm. What if you can't afford bail? I have a plan for you. Stay out of jail.
Yep.
Well, you're so right about that too. I've talked to judges and attorneys, both criminal and civil, but on the criminal side, they really don't want to throw the book at you. Is the impression I get is that let's try to figure out what's best for you, and it's probably, by the way, not jail,
probation,
prison, right?
probation.
Yeah, something other than jail.
Yeah.
And I think you're right when I from what I hear too, I can attest that, the tone of it is, let's not send you there. So like you say, if you've gotten there, then you must have really been working at it. But somehow that rhetoric is still out there that prisons are too full of really not
minor
serious
crimes.
offenders,
Yeah.
and I just don't know how that's happening.
You cannot be a minor crime and be in prison.
Yeah.
We house a lot of state prisoners now because of realignment, where before, if you were sentenced over a year, it was in state prison automatically. Now we have one that's in county jail for 14 years. That's realignment changed all that. And there are jails that have people doing 50 years, and the security system is different for people that are in there for a year as opposed to someone that's going to do the rest of their life in there.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
And we're not structured for that, but nobody cared.
That's nuts to me. But I mean, with pretrial, you might have somebody sitting there for 5 or 6 years based on how long they're
waiting to go to trial,
right. But to have people held, those people
these
were
are
hard enough
sentenced,
to care for. Right.
These are sentenced to long-term commitments, and certain crimes are served in the county jail as opposed to and those people are we still try and provide the programs because they're going to get out at some point. And it's really in their vigor to help people and to change lives. They've just taken the wrong path to do it, and they've really accentuated the problem. And there has to be I'm for the carrot and the stick, but there has to be punishment. And there has to be consequences for your actions. This is a lot like parenting. Tell your kid that you're going to do something. About the 5th time you don't do it, they're not worried anymore.
Yeah. That's what my grandpa would say in the department. Yeah, that's funny. With COVID, I'm really curious. All of us were locked at home. Locked up at our houses and so forth. And I know there was still a lot of need for law enforcement. What did crime rates change? Did types of crime change?
Yeah, we saw an increase in domestic violence and violent crime. I don't know that it's directly attributed to COVID, because I had this belief that you all were locked down, the people that don't follow the rules, they couldn't give a crap about COVID or the rules with COVID. So I don't know that it had a significant impact, but we do know that, for example, homicides, the city and the county, and the small cities throughout Kern County, we're over 100 homicides for the year already. That's one every 2.5 days. Wow. Somebody killing somebody else. It's just insanity.
Is there a trend or a change that you're noticing that's causing that? Is that more gang related? Is that more domestic violence? Or is there anything that we can understand about that?
We're seeing more multiple victims than we ever saw before. And what we're really seeing the increase is people willing to confront law enforcement, and they don't care. We've had people run at us in the middle of the night for no reason, got themselves shot and killed. All they're going to do is assault a police officer. It doesn't make sense. But the media has portrayed us as the bad guys, and to people that are having a mental health problem, that can become reality. Yeah. And once it's reality, it doesn't matter whether it's real or not. It is to them. And I'm not blaming the media, because we're all responsible for this. Sure. I think the media could do a better job, and some of them do better than others, quite frankly. But we have to start portraying law enforcement officers as the people who are there to help you. We can't train our youth that the cops are bad. When they become teenagers, guess what they think, and guess what's going to happen? Why do I have to sit down? I don't have to talk to you. I know my rights, and unless you have a really good police officer there, it can go south in a hurry. What's the sweetest moment you've had in your career? Oh, there's been so many. When you really help someone. We had a child lost in the desert, and it was in the middle of winter. And in the desert, when nightfall, it gets cold, and the elements will get you really quickly. And I can remember telling the father, "Don't worry, we got a helicopter. We'll find him." I was going, "Oh man," because it's a big desert. Yeah. And we did find him. Those are moments that you go, okay, that's why I'm here. you have a lot of those. You really do. You have a lot more the other way, but we get pretty immune to that criticism because you hear it all the time.
Right.
And the truth of the matter is that you'll see when you see a police officer on his knee talking to a child, he's not doing it so you can take a picture
Right.
of it. You know? And that's why you don't see it very often, because that's not why they do it.
You know, when you, before you became sheriff, were you ever at a stage of ready to retire and then you saw a need that you needed to step into? Or what made you decide to run for sheriff?
I did retire as a commander, and then I came back and ran for sheriff a couple years later. I just felt like the department was at a point where they needed leadership, and I had people that were calling me saying, would you run? And, you have to be careful with this politics and this running, because people will tell you, hey, you're the savior, you're the greatest thing, you're the da, and you can start believing that pretty easily, because it sounds good. But you got to get up in the morning, look in the mirror, and say, you really just remember who you are and what you're really all about. Because if you don't, you're going to get yourself in trouble. So I went through that, and I really did feel that something needed to be done. And I met with Carl Sparks, and we had a conversation. I met with a few other people that were in the organization, and I made a decision to run. And I thought I'd be sheriff for 2 terms and go back to playing golf again. I'm still waiting for that to happen.
I love Sheriff Sparks. Probably one of the most incredible people ever.
I just talked to him yesterday. He's doing well. I think he's 83, 82. He's probably killed me because I said that. But.
I got to tell one story. My grandfather always shared about himself and Carl, or Sheriff Sparks. When my grandfather started in 63, maybe way back.
That's when Carl started, 62.
Good. Okay, good, perfect. Yes, that makes sense. Carl had already gone through half the academy, the first half, and my grandfather was just hired and needed to go through an academy. They threw him in the same academy Carl was in to just finish the last half, and then so he only had half an academy, and him and Carl hit the streets in near Taft, wherever. Starts with an M. Anyways,
Mojave.
Yeah.
That's where the Carl worked in the beginning.
So him and my grandfather was wearing street clothes, didn't have not a costume, a uniform yet. And him and Carl drove around and took care of business. And then it was a year and a half later, they sent my grandfather back for the first half of the academy.
Well, in Mojave back in 62, I wasn't here then for the record, but they had a light on the hill. And that light, when it flashed, so you knew you had a call. And so
Are you kidding?
You'd go make a call to the dispatcher,
wow.
Put a payphone and find out what the call was. But the difference between then and now, the real difference is if the board of supervisors said go hire 50 deputies and people wanted the job, and I started today, it would be almost 18 months before I handed them a set of keys. That's how long it takes to fill a position. During that 18 months, people retire, people leave service, they change departments, and it's hard to stay up with that. Most people think, well, you can just hire a deputy in 2 weeks, just like every other job, they can go to work, and it's not the case.
The old stories are the best stories, though.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
My story's better than yours.
Well, I spent 1/3 of my career before I was the sheriff in the desert.
Yeah.
And there's an interesting population that lives in the desert. They're in the desert for a reason.
I don't know what that means.
They're just crazy as hell.
Okay.
But they're good people. And I lived in Boron. It was a great job. I love the people in the desert and in the mountain communities.
So if you'll play along a little bit, we do have a few rapid-fire rap questions. So first off would be, is there a book that you would highly recommend people read, or maybe that you read, influenced you, maybe something that you gift or hand out on a regular basis that's been significant in your career, your life?
There's a lot of old military books that I love to read. Colonel Bud Anderson. He was flew the P-51. I met him. He signed the book. Then I bought a picture of him with a P-51 and a piece of the airplane that
Nice.
But when you read that history, especially World War II veterans,
it's so good.
It makes you understand why they were called the greatest generation.
Yeah.
I met Chuck Yeager, and then talking to Chuck Yeager, it was I met General Curtis LeMay. I played golf with him in the desert when I was out there. And make no mistake about it, you knew he was a general.
Yeah.
Yeah. His personality wasn't the same, but you knew he was a general.
I'm a big George Patton fan.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't get in fact, I just watched Patton the other day. It was on TV, so I got hooked. And I hadn't watched it in years, but I love that movie. I love, all the kind of the legends about Patton and all the accomplishments.
If you want to learn something about leadership, read World War II leaders. Read about them. Read their books, and you'll get a real clue what it's like to be a leader.
That's a great recommend.
That's awesome. Yeah. Okay, I know that you have enjoyed flying. I know that you like to golf. What other hobby do you have that maybe we wouldn't recognize?
You know, I'm a big hiker, and
hiking. Okay.
I do. I hike. I was doing 100 miles a month.
What?
And and my body started saying that might be a little too much. So I slowed down, and I'm doing quite a bit less than that now because
70 miles a month.
No, I'm down to about 50.
Okay.
Because your knees start hurting, and but it clears the head more than anything. And I love to hike. I love to go out on the bluffs. I love to see people. I meet a lot of people out there, and it's a lot of fun. And we have the fair starts today. That's we'll see how that goes.
I spent the morning out there helping.
Did you?
Yeah, get booths set up and stuff. Yeah.
Well, I hope we don't have a big COVID outbreak. You know, I think that the fair is outdoors, and if people just pay a little bit of attention, they'll be fine. Mm-hmm. You know, as I told you, we lost a deputy last Thursday to COVID, 45-year-old Gabe Gonzalez, and was working out of the Fraser Park substation. It's tragedy. It's just an absolute tragedy when that happens because they have real families. His brother's a deputy, and you know you get up and you go, wow, this is like surreal. But I want people to be cautious. Yeah. But I want them to have fun and do what they think is right, not what I think is right.
Sheriff, who would you say has been your biggest mentor, career, life? Maybe it's more than one person. Who has stood out to be a leader in your life that's taught you a lot?
Before when I was in high school, I had a guy that, because I was a baseball player, only my grades weren't really, I had to really work hard to keep my grades up. And I got a job because I got a car, and I was working at the Gulf Station at Chester Lane and Oak Street, and a guy named Haskell Turner, named Hack. Of course, he's gone now, but he said, I'm going to hire you because you're a good worker, but you're going to get at least C's or you don't work here. And I thought, well, okay, I need the job, I need the money, I want to play baseball. So it all fell in, but he was strict about it too. He bring your report card, I want to see it. He helped guide me along the path. Certainly in the sheriff's office, Carl Sparks is, I was his press secretary for several years, and I was like a sponge. I soaked it up. I realized that this guy could say anything and get away with it. Mm-hmm. I thought, how does he do this? Well, I know how he does it now. Although I don't always get away with it, but he got a free pass. He's like Joe Biden.
Well, you're doing a great job, Sheriff. We really appreciate having you here today.
It's been fun.
If somebody wants to reach out to you or your office after the show and they have a few questions for you or just information that they want to get to you, what is the best way to reach your office and connect with you?
Probably email, because my secretary, you'll never get through that. She's good at what she does.
She's good at her job, yeah.
Sometimes I can't even get her. But my email address is youngblood@kernsheriff.org. People can send me an email. I get them all the time. I'm on social media, which I never thought I would be, until probably not this last term, but the term before. My campaign manager said, we got to use social media. And I said, how to do that stuff. Yeah, you do now. And it's amazing what you can accomplish.
Through the channels.
And the people you can reach. And it's, I went to Ridgecrest when I first ran for sheriff. I did these TV commercials. And not knowing anything about politics, when I got to Ridgecrest, I had these, I don't know if they were tapes or DVDs, but I went around to the TV, trying to find the TV station, and I realized they don't get our TV. They get TV out of L.A. So I had these commercials. Well, you're about smart. And you can't go door to door in Ridgecrest. So social media really opened up a lot of doors.
Yeah,
and,
it does for all businesses.
It does.
That's what I preach.
It does. You just have to be careful because you can get carried away in there, and sometimes I'm too funny for myself. And
weren't you in trouble on Facebook a couple weeks ago?
Oh yeah,
you got blocked on Facebook.
They said I was going too fast. What the hell does that mean? I'm just typing and it flashed up there. You're banned because you were going too fast.
I saw it and I told my co-host Kyle.
I took a picture of it, what they sent me, and it makes no sense. What do you mean going too fast?
The sheriff has been banned from Facebook.
And so I waited 5 minutes and got back on, and it was gone. I don't know.
It was only up for 5 minutes.
Yeah,
Man,
I've had it twice
those 5
now.
minutes.
I don't know. Maybe they're just
I
warning
took
me.
a screenshot when I saw it. I thought this is hilarious.
Slow down, Sheriff. Slow down on Facebook.
They're not trying to protect me. I know. I hadn't even sent anything yet.
Where can people get a hold of you, or not? Maybe not you, but the department if they want to look at the positions that you have open.
Kern County personnel.
The website, right? The county website.
You can go to the Taj Mahal on Truxton, or you can go on their website, list every job, and if you're interested in being a deputy sheriff or a detention deputy, you can fill the information out, and they'll notify you when test is, because we're testing now all the time. Mm-hmm. It's continuous testing. We graduated in the academy Friday, and we'll start another one right away. I've been told we have about 40 people in this next academy, which is really big for us. Now that means we'll graduate. If they're listening, we're going to graduate 40.
Well, I hope there's 21 women in it.
Sheriff, we really appreciate you coming in to our show today. We appreciate everything you do every day for us, our community. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Enjoyed it.
This show has been brought to you by the Law Office of Kyle Jones, Troy Burden with the Lynn Company, CPA John Duffield, Scott Hansen, real estate lender, broker, and investor, and Eckroth, LLC, a sales and marketing agency. You've been listening to the Our 2 Cents podcast. Check out the show notes for links and more information about the show. Also visit our website at our2centspodcast.com or check us on Instagram at Our 2 Cents Podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe.